Good morning. Well, I hope you're staying warm this morning. As most of you have already heard, I'm sure, all of the RMU campuses have been closed. So as a result, I am recording the lecture that was planned for today, and I'll also incorporate some of what I might have talked about on Wednesday. Today we'll be covering chapters 4 and 5 from your text. Chapter 4 covers planning and producing the service performance, and chapter 5 discusses designing the service setting. Okay? Before I get into a discussion of the two chapters, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things, and we'll talk about these in more detail on Wednesday. But midterm grades, which are actually week 3.5, week 4 grades, are posted on Blackboard because those were due this past Sunday. So you'll see your grade there. Please note that those grades are not indicative of what your final grade will be in the class, but it gives you an idea of where you are partially through week 3. Okay? So if you have any questions or concerns about that, please feel free to talk to me when I see you on Wednesday. I had planned to do a team project field exercise in this class, but given some of the days that we're missing, I may revise that and think of another way that we can handle that so that I do want to give you a chance to actually do some on-site, observation or data gathering at the site that you've selected for your team project. But we'll talk about that too on Wednesday. You'll also see on the assignment link under week 5, I had planned on doing team project discussion boards. I'm going to modify that assignment given that we are not meeting today. So again, stay tuned for some changes to that. This originally was set up as group projects, excuse me, a group discussion board. And each of you would see under your group page a discussion board for that assignment. That will be changing, so don't do that just yet, okay? And then finally, I wanted to remind you that there will be an exam covering chapters 4 through 9, and that exam is not until week 7, but I just want to give you a reminder and a heads up to keep that in mind. That exam will launch on January 19th, which is a Sunday of week 7, and will be available through January 24th, which will be the Friday of week 7, okay? So let's talk about your text. In this next section, part 2 of your text, we're looking at creating the interactive experience. And the first part of that we'll be examining with chapters 4 and 5, where chapter 4 will talk about planning and delivering a service performance, and chapter 5 explores the role of the service setting in delivering and communicating that service performance. Now keep in mind, when we're talking about service performance, we're talking about that services theater framework, remember, where we think of the service setting and the entire service encounter as actors on stage performing for an audience, right? And the actors are the employees. They're following a particular script. They're wearing a costume, which may be their uniform. And you are the audience, right? And part of what we'll be exploring throughout the remainder of the text and in these two chapters is what we can do to design a setting that creates the best experience and how we can plan that setting, again, to ensure that it's the best experience for the customer, okay? And we talk about service performance. Your text talks about, in order to plan that successfully, we have to understand the characteristics. And that's one of the things that you'll be looking at in chapter 4. It talks about a script and a blueprint, but there are elements of designing a service where and we want to look at each of those components individually. And again, so chapter 4 discusses the concept of the script and the blueprint, and this helps you understand each of the elements that are involved in creating and providing a service performance. Now, chapter 5 will talk about this concept of service setting, which is also another key component. I'm introducing this a little bit earlier, but service setting is really the physical environment. We sometimes also call that a servicescape. So servicescape can be an actual physical setting and environment where the service occurs, or we can have an e-servicescape where we're talking about a company's website, for example, so where you're interacting virtually. Rather than in a physical environment. But again, we're talking about service setting. We're talking about those elements of a physical environment or an e-electronic environment. But that's where the service provider and the customers will interact. So when we think about service performance, one of the things that your text talks about in the beginning of chapter 4 is the fact that when we look around, and I believe it was a quote from, oh gosh, now I'm going to draw a blank, but from a famous baseball player. And basically what he said is when we look around, we can see things when we pay attention, right? Oh, I'm sorry, it's Yogi Berra. You can observe a lot just by watching, right? So one of the things I want to ask you to think about is when you observe and you look around, what is it that you can see? So first I want you to think about what your favorite color is. There's a reason I'm asking this question, but think for a minute about your favorite color. Is it yellow? Red? Blue? White? Green? But when you think about the color, think about how that color makes you feel. Does it make you feel calm and relaxed? Does it make you feel happy? Is there some sense of nostalgia? Does it take you back to a different point in time or happy time in your life or a certain experience that made you really feel good? Do you feel really energized? I'm guessing if it's your favorite color, there's probably some positive feeling or emotion that is evoked by that color. By the same token, there are probably colors, and hopefully they're not your favorite, that create just the opposite feeling, right? Colors that might make you feel a little bit sad or down. But colors do create a mood, right? And they also can communicate certain themes and ideas, right? Because when we think of words like clean, fresh, crisp, organic, sophisticated, spirited, new, old, dirty. When you think about those words, think about what colors does that convey, right? So when we think about it, something even as simple as color can convey meaning and communicate a feeling. And one of the things I want you to think about as we're working on these projects and look at service setting and a service environment, the service scape, uniforms, what kind of colors do you see and how does that make you feel? The same as when we look around, what can we see? When we observe and we see a lot. Think about music. When I ask the question, does music create a mood? So take a minute to think about how you feel right now, okay? Now I'd like you to listen to two short clips. I'm not going to play them here, I have the links, but I really would like you to take a minute. Both of them are about 3 minutes long. The first one is Tito Puente, Ron Kan Kan, and then the second one is Taylor Swift, You Belong With Me. After you listen to these clips, I want you to think about, has your mood changed from before you were listening to the clips? And if they did the music affect your mood in any way? And how did it do that? Now I want you to think about the music that plays in your favorite service setting. And does this add to the experience you have when you're in that setting? So let's think for a minute about the colors that are in your favorite place and the music that plays. And is the music consistent with the colors? For example, if it's a happy, upbeat music that's playing in the background, are the colors consistent with that? My guess is that that probably would be the case, okay? So let me give you a minute to listen to the two video clips and then think about the questions that I've asked, and then I will be back.